車で走りたい。ここもしだれだね。しだれだ。豪華だよね。こっちが日が当たるから早いのかな。こっちはあれだよね。あんまりと豪華な。
影反射，又影啲花。
Welcome to the mountainside of Shiga, Japan. Here we are near Shigaraki, a famous area known for wonderful tanuki statues that are created out of ceramics. As many of you know, Japan is famous around this time of year for having all kinds of gorgeous cherry blossoms in bloom. How long they last totally depends on the weather forecast, but I had the pleasure of enjoying a nice almost full bloom here just this week. These weeping blooms are just one of the things that make Miho Museum so famous. And as I came to visit this particular area, I was delighted to hear all kinds of foreign people just like myself enjoying the space. Primarily, they were made up of American and Chinese audiences, but I could also hear different Vietnamese, German, French, and Japanese people enjoying the space as well. But really, I was surprised to find a secluded area in the mountainside so busy. Another reason why it will of course be found to be so world-renowned is because of the architect that designed the museum itself. The museum was designed by one I.M. Pei, and he was commissioned by the Shumei family to create this wonderful location. The Shumei family had a desire to make the world beautiful, peaceful, and enjoyable through art. And the following narration will be collected from my own research of I.M. Pei, the Shumei family, and Miho Museum, as well as from various sources, including the website itself and the flyers that you can acquire at the museum. So, without further ado, I'll continue along with some of my own narration in between. The collection of Miho Museum began with a variety of Japanese art, such as tea utensils, Shinto and Buddhist art and paintings, calligraphy, ceramics, and lacquerware that the founder, Mihoko Komoya, had collected from time to time over 40 years. At some point, this idea expanded into the concept of an art museum, along with the idea of making the world a more beautiful, peaceful, and enjoyable place through art. And as that wish came true, through an encounter with architect I.M. Pei, it spread to ancient art around the world. The collection consists of about 3,000 items, ranging from Japan to the ancient Orient, of which about 250 to 500 items are open to the public at all times. And this is one of the reasons in which I love museums around Japan. I'm from the UK, so my experience when visiting museums is usually a kind of attack on the senses in the most wonderful of ways. I'm used to seeing everything a Victorian collector had ever gathered in their travels during their time, displayed all at one time in a gallery as high as we can imagine and as wide as we can see. But Japanese museums have a different feeling about them, And in this particular museum, you can even experience a solitary statue from Pakistan of Buddha, an ancient artifact that resides in a room alone, standing nearly 2.5 meters tall. Nothing else need be in the room. And yet, more interestingly than that, to me, the wallpaper is neither an onslaught, again, of senses, pattern, and more, but it's orange. You know, it's not even plain and white. Someone has imagined a feeling of warmth and welcomingness that decided it should be orange in here, complementing the kind of sandstone effect of the standing Buddha. The Miho Museum opened in November 1997. It was designed by the world-renowned architect I.M. Pei, whose other works include the glass pyramid of the Louvre Museum in Paris and the East Wing of the National Gallery in Washington, D.C. Aside from that, his lifetime of experience includes yet furthermore creations in France, Greece, China, and more. And he had never expected a more demanding project than this Miho Museum. Out of respect for nature, and yet further still, an agreement with the mountains themselves, the architect built 80% of the museum below ground. While the silhouette of the roof has its origins in traditional Japanese architecture, harmonizing beautifully with the surrounding landscape, the building's contemporary glass structure allows a light-filled interior space. From the geometric design of its glass ceilings to its limestone walls, the entire building welcomes its visitors as it unfolds rich visions into the splendor of natural light. However, you might note that by this point we've already been walking for quite a while and we have not yet stumbled upon the museum itself. We have passed through a grove of cherry blossoms, through a long tunnel, and now over something similar to a suspension bridge. And in the distance we can almost see our destination. The Miho facilities are designed around Peach Blossom Spring theme. The early Chinese writer Tao Yungming's famous Tale of the Peach Blossom Spring recounts the story of a fisherman who lost his way and found a grove of blossoming peach trees. It ended at a spring near a hill. There he noticed a ray of light coming from a small cave at the foot of a mountain. Once inside, he found himself on a narrow road, but travelling deeper, a splendid view suddenly opened before him, and he stumbled into the Shangri-la-like land of the immortals. There were rows of fine houses, well-cultivated paddies and fields, crystal-clear ponds, as well as lush mulberry groves and bamboo thickets. Roads ran in all directions, and the people working in the fields appeared to be enjoying themselves. As the villagers noticed him, a look of astonishment appeared on each of their faces. But they soon began making preparations to serve him wine, chicken, and other excellent food. Now, it's actually no accident that the experience of walking from the entranceway long before the tunnel, long before the cherry grove, of arriving at Miho Museum is similar to that of the fishermen arriving at something that seemed so much like Shangri-la. However, not for the reasons that you might have expected. I.M. Pei is a Chinese-American architect, and he grew up in China and remembers the long journeys up thousands of steps to reach the temples, of which he thinks is no accident. That moment of reflection as you are arriving where you need to be after an arduous or thoughtful or poignant trip up so many stairs. As you can see here, there's a bell tower just in the distance. This was one of the earliest creations on this site. And as the workers were slaving away every day, trying to get numerous types of construction materials all the way up mountains where nothing else resided, truly nothing, The bell tower was a constant reminder to them that they were in the right place, they were doing the right thing, and that the end goal was so important. And the tree that we just saw at the time of completion in 1997, this tree was already 150 years old. Akamatsu, a special type of red Japanese pine. It was here originally, they safely removed it, and they carefully implanted it back into its position with pride of place in this most picturesque way, overlooking the mountain range, the Peach Valley. Now, within this museum, you can experience lots of wonderful things, lots of treasures from ancient civilizations. And some of the rooms have even been created especially to contain some of those, such as a 22-foot-long carpet from Israel. I.M. had a dream to fulfill a communion between art and nature when he was creating Miho Museum. However, it wasn't until the completion of this museum that he even remembered the story of the fisherman and the peach grove that led to Shangri-la. Upon completion of Miho Museum, he finally realized and remembered this old story which clearly resonated within him, perhaps deep within his bones, deep within his soul. And he was told that the name of this valley, the name of all of these mountains, this huge area, is actually Momodani, Peach Valley, something he only knew at the very end. Something so typical of Japanese culture and tradition is the idea that you might have a ceremony or a special rite to speak as mere mortals to the sacred mountains and trees and forests and things around us. In 1994, a special ceremony happened here on the construction site of Miho Museum to promise to the mountain that they would leave it just as they found it. And later, in the fall of 1995, a ceremony marked the completion of the roof. A golden bolt was screwed into place by Mrs. Shumei. But throughout the entire museum you can see evidence, both inside and outside, around the whole grounds, evidence of the care in which they took when reminding themselves that nature was everywhere and it should be restored as it was. The height of any one room was never enough, and so a special alcove in a room was created to allow this carpet to hang in its full length. Just another way in which every part of this museum has been created to show sensitivity towards that which was created long before us. You won't find many other colours other than this kind of sandstone and the silver of the steel. That's intentional. It's important not to override the senses with too much, so that we have appreciation for that which is exactly before us. In one of the special exhibitions at the moment, there is a wonderful creation called Universal Symphony. I didn't know what to expect. In fact, I really didn't know what I was walking into. But I found myself in a crescent-shaped room with, I think, 24 panels that were equally sized, around 1 meter by 2 meters, and all were this vibrant blue color. I could read in English and Japanese an explanation that showed that the artist that created this piece actually never lived to see it finished and installed in its location. And I was amazed to find that not only did it contain all kinds of symbolism in relation to different animals, such as turtles, which are a sign of longevity in so many different Asian cultures, but within the artwork were 22,690 fingerprints, a reminder of something so important, a deep connection that the Shumei family and I.M. have with Miho Museum, and that is a point of prayer. And so before one of the other exhibition spaces, I found some really beautiful text that I would like to read to you in this following section. Surely human beings are at their most beautiful when they are at prayer, when caught up in a grave crisis, when buffeted by forces beyond one's control. We pray from the bottom of our hearts, not limited to ourselves or our families, when we encounter pain or grief suffered by others, we offer our unselfish support through prayer. When the prayer for all people to attain happiness transcends nations and peoples, it can pave the way for a shining path towards world peace. Prayer, which is intangible and yet certain, is sometimes transformed into beautiful things that give people hope and the strength to live. Great wars and disasters continue to menace entire civilizations. Domestic and international conflicts abound, and foul events fueled by human fixations, enmities, envies, and hatreds unfold without cease. Despite it all, most people carry on with their lives as best they can. Surely that is because they know that no matter how difficult things can be, life is still full of beautiful sentiments and wonderful events. No doubt that conviction comes from an unconscious sense of that which we are naturally inclined to think of, the welfare of others, and to pray for the happiness of many others, because our own destiny is firmly linked to the state of the whole world. Through the works in this section, we can explore how people in antiquity, both East and West, embodied their prayer using images of deities they felt represented the divine power that transcends human understanding. The gaze of motherly love we can feel in Isis cradling the sun god, Horus, the dignity of the earth mother goddess, the Buddhas and other deities brimming with compassion, the delighted expressions of Minoan worshippers, the Olmec mask connecting the human and the divine. All of these were created from the bounty of the earth itself, from stone, metal, or wood. The seated image of Shakyamuni in meditation captures the early images of Buddha to be created through exchanges between the cultures of East and West. The statue of Jizo, with its quiet and tranquil gaze, represented a Bodhisattva, a deity devoted to the salvation of the sentient beings until the descent of the Maitreya, believed to appear in this world eons after the death of Buddha. The craftsperson's outstanding skill, yearning for the eternity of the spirit, and links to the sublime assure that these precious images will speak to people's hearts, the purity of their spirit resonating timelessly and transcending all cultures and faiths. Born out of the prayers for their happiness of people who lived so long ago, they are gifts from antiquity for us, who are living in what was their future. These works offer the opportunity to open our hearts to a beautiful symphony of prayer, East and West. If I can say anything to you now in relation to this site, it would be that I hope this video has convinced you to step outside of that which is the usual tourist destination. Japan is a wonderful country, and so much of it is so well advertised, and perhaps Miho is, to you, especially if you're Chinese or American. But if it's not, then I hope I've convinced you to come and enjoy this spectacular place. You can visit in 1 or 2 hours, but if I were you, I'd come for 3, 4, 5 or more. Thank you so much for watching, and do consider checking out the other things that I make too. Thank you.
しだれだね。左だった。こっちが日が当たるから早いのかな、こっちはあれだよね。
唔係影反射咯，就影啲花。
Thank you for watching. Check out linktr.ee/Miss Kendall James to support me and see what else I make.